Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd just like to introduce the Inquisitive Musician's Mitstreiter tonight. You've just heard Okkyung Lee on the cello and Kenta Nagai on the oud, with David Watson on the Kunstpfeifer. David will also be performing the part of Box Merton and the bailiff shortly. Over there on the left you can see Tracy Williams, who is going to be playing the part of Bona, the innkeeper, and Cupido. Alexander Grau is down there in the front row. He'll be performing the marvellous Count Musophilus. Guy Richard Smit is also down there in the front row. He's Paulus Harmonicus, the Kunstpfeifer. And his colleague Enuncius, played by Alan Licht, who's also over there in the front row. Then we have the beer fiddlers, who are the arch enemies of the Kunstpfeifers. Fiedelhänsel and Kette, played by Shelley Hirsch, here. Pechmann and Wascherbleil, played by Michael Schmidt, in the centre there. And Schieferbertel and the White Horse, performed by Mark Kingsley, here. And myself, David Hatcher. I will be reading the parts of Prologus and Pickle Hearing. This is something that Cindy Bernard, who's down there hiding behind a camera, and myself have developed from a 17th century German satire about beer-drinking violinists. Hopefully that'll become clear as we go along. I just wanted to mention before we start that there are a couple of terms in here you might not be familiar with. One of them is Schelm, which means, loosely speaking, a rogue. The other one is Bernhäuter, which gets bandied around a little bit, and that means something like a cretinous bug. Perhaps at this point I should mention that if you still have your cell phones on, you will be a Bernhäuter, because we're recording.
God, I hope I don't.
Okay, so without further ado, we'll bring you the Inquisitive Musician, the struggle for precedence between the Kunstpfeifer and the common players, presented in our sparkling new comedy. Ha ha, ha 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 ha. Oh, I am almost bursting from laughter. Ha ha ha. I laugh myself to death. Ha ha ha. What a bunch of fools. My belly is being split by laughter. What a bunch of idiots. These foolish hares want to stage a comedy and they've forgotten the Prologus. I could go home and get you one, yes, if I were a fool. If you wanted to set eyes on me again today, you would have to have remarkable sight. But you silly creatures, do you think that these noble gentlemen, ladies, and maidens who have gathered here to see and to listen to your comedy will sit here impatiently and wait for you? Can't you see that it is about time? Don't you hear the murmuring of these noble spectators who from the long waiting have already become bad-tempered? Now come on stage and make a beginning. If you don't know Prologus, just act without one. Aren't you coming yet? Now come here. Come out here, you impolite oafs. Get out, you donkeys. Do you really think, you fools, that you necessarily need a Prologus? What is it good for? Maybe he shall ask on your behalf for gracious silence and kind audience from those present. Well, then I shall do that on his behalf. Gracious audience, would you be so kind as to be silent and listen attentively? Don't you hear, you comedians, how quiet and modest the gentlemen spectators are proving to be, and how keen they are to hear you? Or maybe the Prologus was supposed to give an account of the comedy's content. Well, that is not really necessary, since if the noble spectators do not know it, they will listen to the entire comedy with even more curiosity. Therefore, come onto the stage, begin the play, and imagine I would have been the Prologus.